Greetings to everyone. I hope that all of you who are watching this video are doing well in this time of crisis. So I was recently requested by the Sakya Monastery in Seattle to give a teaching in this time during which, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, many people are not able to go to Dharma centers, meet with teachers and receive teachings. So for them to have access to teachings, I was requested to give a short teaching, and I have chosen to give the mind training of parting from the four attachments. And the reason why that I've chosen this teaching is because I find it very helpful in this kind of time during which we are facing many difficulties, especially due to this pandemic. And not just that, but also generally speaking, the many difficulties in our life that we face. And so this teaching, which is known as Parting from the Four Attachments, is classified as a mind training. And mind training is especially important and comes in handy in times like this because it helps you to be able to better face the situation, to be able to face the situation with more confidence and without stress and without worry and without a troubled mind. And this is something that we all need in this time because, as we all know, this COVID-19 that is to this day still spreading across the globe has brought us a lot of trouble, whether it be our lives or the economy and so forth. And so, since this is all so sudden, this has happened so suddenly, many of us are unprepared to face it. It has become such similar to you could say a shock, and many of us we do not know how to face it, or we do not end up facing it well, and we end up being very unhappy. And due to that, we have seen that many people, due to unhappy mind, have also taken their lives. And I think this is because mainly because they are confused. And not just that, of course, but they have many worries about the current situation, and also about the future situation. And so this kind of mind training will definitely help you to open up to a new perspective, and it will help you to be able to better face all of these difficulties. And so, to give you a brief overview of the history of this teaching was given by Lord Manjushri to Lama Sachen Gungan Yingpo, who is one of the founding members of the Sakya tradition of Tibetan Buddhism. And it all started shortly after the great master Khöndung, who was the very first founder of the Sakya tradition, passed away. And he was the father of Lama Sachen. And when he passed away, Lama Sachen was still at a very young age. And so therefore, Lama Sachen was not able, and he was too young to take upon himself the responsibilities of looking after the Sakya tradition, and particularly speaking the Sakya Monastery. And so at that time, Lama Sachen seeked Lama Barilotsawa, who was one of the great translators of Tibet, and he seeked him for advice on what to do. And Lama Bari told him that since you are the son of a great lineage holder, and you yourself also have to take upon yourself the responsibilities of upholding the doctrine of the Buddha, it is most important that you study the teachings of the Buddha and of the great masters. And in order to do that, you need intelligence and wisdom. And the way or method in which you can attain intelligence and wisdom is by accomplishing Lord Manjushri, who is the single embodiment, the very manifestation of the wisdom of all of the Buddhas of the three times. And saying so, Lama Bari gave Lama Sachen all of the important instructions related to Bodhisattva Manjushri, especially the initiation of the saffron-colored Manjushri to Lama Sachen. And after Lama Sachen received all of the instructions and initiations, then Lama Sachen proceeded to accomplish Lord Manjushri, and so he locked himself up in a cave to practice Lord Manjushri. And during that time, he was 12 years old. And in the beginning stage, he faced several difficulties and obstacles in his practice, but he eventually overcame them. And in 6 months' time, he beheld the face of Lord Manjushri. And Lord Manjushri appeared in front of Lama Sachen in the posture of sitting on a throne with his 2 hands in the Dhamma Chakra Mudra, or the Mudra of turning the wheel of Dharma, and accompanied by 2 great bodhisattvas. And during that time, in which Lord Manjushri appeared in front of Lama Sachen, Lord Manjushri gave Lama Sachen a very profound teaching. And what he taught Lama Sachen was a 4-line verse, very short and simple, yet very profound. And it goes as, if you are attached to this life, you are not a true Dharma practitioner. If you are attached to cyclic existence, you do not have renunciation. If you are attached to your own well-being, you do not have the mind of enlightenment. And if you have grasping, then you do not have the view. So Lord Manjushri bestowed upon Lama Sachen this 4-line verse, which is very short and simple. And when Lama Sachen practiced this and meditated upon the meaning of this 4-line verse, he came to understand that this very short verse happens to encompass the whole essence of the perfection vehicle which was taught by the Buddha. And so therefore this is not only very short, but it is also very profound. And so I will be giving you this teaching today. And before I give this teaching, I would like to mention the gurus, my teachers, whom I've had the great fortune to receive this teaching from, as there is great merit in mentioning and remembering one's gurus, whom one has received the great and holy Dharma. So my gurus or teachers whom I have received this particular teaching is His Holiness the Vajra, the 41st Sakya Tichen Rinpoche, as well as the late, very venerable Khenchen Abe Rinpoche. So from them, I received the explanation guide of these teachings, and I have also received the oral transmission of this teaching as well. And the Lama or teacher whom I have received in the oral transmission is the very venerable Khöndung Rinpoche. And so there are several commentaries or explanation guides on this 4-line verse, parting from the 4 attachments. And today I will be speaking and sharing with you this teaching based on the commentary by the great Sakya Master Koramba Sonam Singye. So, to speak of this, first of all, before I start, I would like to apologize in advance for my limited knowledge of English. And also I would like to let you know that we will divide this teaching into 2 videos. So this will be the first video, and there will also be a second video in which I will explain the other half of this teaching. So to understand this or to speak of this teaching, there are 4 topics, I guess you could say, in which we need to understand and remember. And it comes in a process. So the first is, by abandoning attachment to this life, one turns one's mind toward the Dharma. The second is, by abandoning attachment to cyclic existence, one turns the Dharma into the path. And thirdly, by abandoning attachment to one's own welfare, the path dispels confusion. And fourthly and lastly, by abandoning clinging or grasping to the 4 extremes, confusion arises as wisdom. And so these are 4 topics which we need to remember. And to speak of the first topic, it can also be divided. It can be further divided into 3 topics. First, as a preliminary, we meditate upon the meaning of the rarity of the human birth. Secondly, as the main teaching or the main practice, we meditate upon the meaning of impermanence. And lastly, as an aspect of the path, we ponder upon the meaning of the law of cause and effect, also known as the law of karma. So, among these 3 topics, to speak of the first, which is to meditate upon the rarity of the human birth. So to do so, one should first sit on a comfortable seat, and it is best if one can sit in a room or place in which there is less distractions, away from distractions from outward noises and disturbances. And it is it is important to sit in the right posture. And after having done so, then one proceeds by taking refuge in one's guru, as well as the 3 jewels. So we take refuge in the guru, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And when we speak of the guru, we are speaking of the guru from whom one has received teachings, especially empowerments, and in this case particularly, the Guru whom one has received this teaching, departing from the four attachments. And when speaking of the three jewels, we are speaking of the three jewels according to the Mahayana tradition. And according to the Mahayana tradition, the three jewels are the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So the name is same, however it does differ a bit in the understanding or explanation of each of these jewels. So according to the Mahayana tradition, the Buddha is the embodiment, or you could say the Buddha is endowed with the three bodies. So the three bodies are the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, and the Nirmanakaya. So the Dharmakaya is basically, although it is called a body, it is basically the mind of the Buddha. So one can understand it to be the mind of the Buddha. And the Sambhogakaya is the Buddha that is not visible to sentient beings, but this kind of Buddha lives and resides in the Buddha field known as Akanishta. And this Buddha always teaches the Mahayana, only the Mahayana Dharma. And this Buddha's audience only consists of bodhisattvas on the 10th level. And this Buddha, the duration during which the duration of this Buddha teaching the Dharma to these enlightened bodhisattvas is until cyclic existence is emptied. So this kind of Buddha is known as the Sambhogakaya. Now lastly, we have the Nirmanakaya. So the Nirmanakaya is the emanation of the Sambhogakaya. And there are many different kinds of Nirmanakayas. There are Nirmanakayas such as emanations of the Sambhogakaya that are emanated in the form of animals such as rabbits, tigers, or lions and like, or turtles. And there are also emanations of the Sambhogakaya emanated as inanimate objects such as bridges, ferries, roads and the like. And if you consider Shakyamuni Buddha is also a Nirmanakaya emanation, and he is considered the most excellent type of Nirmanakaya emanation. So this is the three bodies of the Buddha. It is known as the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, and the Nirmanakaya. So when we take refuge in the Buddha, we are taking refuge in the Buddha that is endowed with these three bodies. And when we take refuge in the Dharma can be further divided into two different kinds of Dharmas, the Scriptural Dharma and the Realization Dharma. So the Scriptural Dharma is the kind of Dharma that is on the books, such as the letters that speak of the Buddha's teachings. And the Realization Dharma is the understanding or the realization that is in the minds of the bodhisattvas. And this kind of realization that they are endowed with comes from having understood the meaning of what the Buddha taught, the essence of the Buddha's teachings. So when we take refuge in the Dharma, we take refuge in these two Dharmas, the Scriptural Dharma and the Scriptural Dharma and the Realization Dharma. And when we take refuge in the Sangha, according to the Mahayana tradition, the Sangha is the bodhisattvas that reside on the 10 levels. So basically the enlightened bodhisattvas. So we take refuge in the enlightened bodhisattvas. So therefore, once one has taken a comfortable seat, one takes refuge in the Guru, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And after having taken refuge, we pray to them, that one's mind turns towards the Dharma, that the Dharma turns towards the path, and that the path dispels confusion, and confusion arises as wisdom. And after having prayed in such a manner, then we proceed to generate the mind of enlightenment. And the way to do so is by thinking, may I attain the full, complete enlightenment, the perfect, full and complete enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So by that kind of thought, one generates the mind of enlightenment in front of one's guru and the three jewels. And after having generated the mind of enlightenment, then one proceeds to meditate upon and ponder upon the meaning of the verity of the human birth. And the way to do so is one reflects and thinks about the meaning of the nature of the rarity of the human birth. Why is attaining a human birth considered rare? And one can understand that by considering several reasons. The first is the consideration of the causes of attaining the human birth. So when we think of the causes for attaining the human birth are good deeds. We are only able to attain this precious human birth that we are now endowed with due to good deeds. It is the result of good deeds. It does not come from bad deeds, but it comes from the result of past good karma. Good karma that has been accumulated in past lives. And so if that is the case, why is the attainment of the human birth still considered rare? One may wonder. And the reason is because if we check on the actions that we do daily, whether it be good actions or bad actions, virtuous actions or non-virtuous actions, we will find that we happen to accumulate more non-virtuous actions than good actions. And this is solely because we are too used to accumulating non-virtuous actions. And it's not because we really want to accumulate, maybe, but not because we really like doing the non-virtuous actions. It may be because we like, but in many cases it may not be because we like it, but it has become a habit from beginningless lifetimes. So therefore we just happen to accumulate less good karma compared to the bad karma. So therefore, we can, by doing that, by thinking about that, we will come to understand that attaining a human birth is very difficult and very rare. And another thing that we can take into consideration is by thinking of the number of beings, the variety of different kinds of beings. So if you think about that, in a spiritual sense, there are many different kinds of beings. There are gods, demigods, humans, animals, hungry ghosts, and hell beings. And if you look at all of that, and if you think about that, and if you examine the number of all of that, you will come to understand that compared to all of the rest of the different kinds or different types of beings, the human race is much less compared to the others. And even if one is not able to take into consideration of that, one can simply think about the sentient beings that live in the foot of a tree, at the trunk of a tree, I guess you would say. So if you consider the beings, the small insects, those such as the ants, and the small bugs, the insects that are visible to the eye, as well as the beings, the small insects that are on the microscopic level and are invisible to the eye, and all of those beings that live at the trunk of a tree, or at the foot of the tree, or below the tree, I guess you would say. You cannot count the number of those. You cannot bring up an exact number or a rough estimation of an exact number of all of the beings that live at the foot of a tree. While you can bring up a rough estimation of the number of human beings that live across the globe. So if you think about that, you will be able to understand that the attainment of the human birth is extremely rare and much less than that of other types of sentient beings. So that is taking into consideration the number of beings. And another way in which we can think about this is by thinking of the examples. There are several examples which tell of the rarity of the human birth. So, for example, if you took a handful of grain and you threw it at a wall, maybe in a wall in your room, the chances that a grain of rice, chances that a grain will stick to the wall is very low. The chances are very low. It is most likely that when you throw it, all of the grains will hit the wall and just fall down to the floor. Yet it is not impossible for a grain to stick to the wall. It's just that it is very difficult and the chances are very low. But it is still possible. But it is very rare. Such an occurrence is very rare. And according to the Buddhist teachings, even rarer than that is the attainment of the human birth. And the reason why is, as I've mentioned before, we do not accumulate as much good deeds, and we accumulate non-virtuous deeds in great abundance. So that is one example to think of. Another example to think of is one thinks of a great ocean. And on this ocean, there's a plank that is floating on a plank of wood, floating on the ocean, on the surface of the ocean. And this plank of wood has a hole in the middle of it. And below in the ocean, there lives a tortoise. And this tortoise is blind. And it only comes up to the surface of the water every 100 years. So now if you consider this example, the chances for it to come together, for the tortoise to come up to the surface to get a breath of air, and for its head getting stuck in the hole of the plank, and is very rare. Such an occurrence is very rare, and chances are very slim, or low, I guess you would say. But it is not impossible. But even rarer than such occurrence is the attainment of the human birth. So if you think about that, you will come to appreciate this human birth that one has attained. And this human birth, the reason why it is considered very important and precious is because compared to the other types of sentient beings, the humans are at an advantage to practice the Dharma. They have they have less distractions compared to other sentient beings, and one can understand it as this: the human race are in the best situation, are in the best position to practice the Dharma. And mainly because it is not as bad, they do not suffer as much as the beings in the lower realms, and they do not enjoy as much happiness as the beings such as the gods in the higher realms. Because in the lower realms, beings are not able to practice the Dharma. And that the main reason why is because they suffer too much. The mind is too tormented that they are not able to generate a peaceful mind. So therefore they are not in any kind of position to practice the Dharma. Even if they wish to, they will not be able to practice the Dharma. And the gods, speaking of the gods and the beings of the higher realms, they enjoy too much happiness. So they are too happy, they are enjoying themselves too much in the sensual pleasures, that they are not able to think of practicing the Dharma, but they are rather carried away in happiness, and too much overdose of happiness. So therefore the humans do not enjoy happiness as much as the gods, yet they do not suffer as much as beings of the lower realms. So therefore they are in the perfect position to practice the Dharma. And that is why it is considered that the human birth is precious and rare to attain. So after having taken upon oneself these considerations, then one thinks to oneself that now I have attained this human birth once, and very difficultly, and so therefore I shall make sure that I will not let this precious human birth go to waste, and I will not let this life be meaningless, but I will bring great meaning to this life, this precious human birth, this great chance that I have attained. And I will do so by accumulating as much good deeds as I can. So with this kind of confidence, one then appreciates one's human body, the attainment of one's human birth, and then one finds joy in practicing the Dharma. So with this I have spoken of the preliminary, which is the to reflect upon the meaning of attaining the human birth. Now just speak of the main practice, which is the meditation upon the meaning of impermanence. To do this, one again takes refuge as before, as well as generate the mind of enlightenment. And after having done so, one thinks to oneself that there is no one that lives forever. There is no one that does not die. There's no one that does not die once they are born. Once someone is born, they must die eventually, sooner or later. And so, not just will they die eventually, but there's no certainty to how long they will live. You cannot say for sure that this person will live to this age. And you cannot say for sure that this person will live any longer than this, or this person will live up to this date. It is all uncertain. And if you think of the causes of death, and there are many causes of death. There are vehicle accidents. You can get in a driving accident, and you can be unhappy, in which due to that you will maybe end up taking your own life, which we see many cases many such cases on the news, of course, and in this world. And you could get a heart attack due to health reasons, and of course old age as well. So there are many ways in which one can die. And in this, especially in this current time, as we can see for ourselves, the COVID-19 pandemic is really threatening the human life, because there is no cure for this, and once you get it, there are chances that if you are not able to fight it, if you're not able to fight the disease or this virus, then you will die. So as you can see, the COVID-19 pandemic is also a cause for it can also be a cause for one's death. So if you think about this, there are many causes that can lead to one's death. And if you think of the things that can help you to live longer, it's much less compared to those that can take away your life. So basically what I'm saying is, your life is not just humans, but all sentient beings. The life is such as the animal beings as well as the humans and the like. All of their lives will come to an end eventually. And when death strikes, when the time comes for you to die, then nothing can help you really. Medicines or prayers and the like, nothing can really save you when it is time for you to go. So therefore none of those are helpful when it is the actual time in which you can go. If it is not the actual time for you to go, for you to die, but yet you face lots of obstacles to your life and there are chances in which you could die, in such situations, then prayers and medicine and the like can be of use and can help you to live longer and to overcome your obstacles to life. However, when you do finally come to an end in your life, and in a situation in which nothing can help, then in that time, then there's nothing but to let go of everything and to move forward into the next life, leaving this life behind. And it's also important that one thinks that once one has died, after one has died, all the wealth and as well as all the wealth that one has accumulated in this life, whether it be one's house, one's land, one's cars, one's money, one's jewels, jewelry, or whatever it is, any kind of possessions that you have, as well as one's loved ones, all of those that you loved, whether it be your parents or your relatives or your best friends and those that you love. When the time comes for you to die, you will have to leave all of these behind. You have to let go of all of them, because you cannot take them with you when you die, because death is a journey which you yourself have to go alone. There is no help. There's not going to be any of your loved ones to help you travel towards the next life. So therefore we have to think of this. And what helps by thinking of this is that by thinking of this, it helps to diminish your attachment to your possessions and your loved ones. And the reason why we are attached, we end up blindly being attached to such loved ones and possessions is mainly because we usually do not think of the meaning of impermanence. We do not tend to think of it. We may know about it, and deep down we may accept the truth, but because it's sort of like to us it's like a dark truth, we rather would like to believe in a white lie, which is thinking that your situation is very stable, whether it's wealth, possessions, loved ones, and whatever you have, it is all certain. It is all stable, and you will be able to enjoy them almost forever. As well as this life, we tend to think that we will live forever, and that is why we are always making plans for the future, because we are just so sure that we will live to see the next day. Even though it is uncertain, we will live to see that day. It is, we could possibly die tonight. We could possibly die tonight. We could possibly die right now due to a certain cause. And so if you think about that, you will find, you'll come to understand that this life is really precious. And although it is very precious, it is impermanent, and it does not last forever. And since it is a great opportunity and it does not last forever, right now, while I still have the time, while I still have this opportunity right in front of me, I will put it to good use, and I will not waste my time and let it be meaningless. So it is important to have this kind of, how do you say, conviction, I think. So with this, one abandons attachment to this life. And this is, the practice of impermanence is very important. It is said to be the, how to say, the main, it helps you to, practice the Dharma the most. It inspires you to practice the Dharma the most. Many of us receive a lot of teachings. We hear a lot of teachings. We read about a lot of teachings in the books. We listen to teachings from audiobooks, or maybe from recordings of teachers, or from videos of great teachers, and we go to see the teachers directly. We receive a great deal of teachings. Yet in many cases, we are not able to adapt all of these teachings into our lives, or at least the essence of the teachings into our lives. And the main reason why that is so is because of laziness. And one of the reasons why is because laziness. And the reason why we have laziness is because, as I mentioned earlier, we always tend to think that we have enough time. And there are, of course, many people that think that I have received a lot of teachings now, but I think it's not really necessary that I need to practice them at the moment. I could practice them later on when I get old, after I retire from my job and the like. So, of course, people would think that. It's natural to think that, but it is, in a way, a big mistake to think that way. Because, as I mentioned earlier, life is uncertain. You could possibly die tomorrow or even tonight. And this is the very reason why the past great Kadamba masters, it is said that before they would go to sleep, they would always turn the cups from which they drink tea, they would turn it upside down, which is a mode or way to show that it is not going to be used. So they turn it upside down every night because they accept the possibility that they may not live to see the next day. And so it is good if you can think of that, think about that. Of course, in thinking of impermanence is not pleasant. It is not a pleasant thought. It is not pleasant to think about it. But it is always the best to face the truth of our situation. it is better to face the truth than to believe in a lie. So that is why. And so therefore, please, I request you all to think of the meaning of impermanence as much as you can. So on top of that, it says here that whether you are wearing good clothes, good ornaments, fancy clothes and the like, whether it be sparkling or any kind of fashionable clothes that you are really attached to, or if you are in the middle of people that you really like, if you are amidst a group of people that, such as your friends, your loved ones and the like, as well as if you are able to eat all of the delicious foods that you prefer to eat, that you like, it is important to remind yourself at that moment while you are enjoying these, while you are enjoying this moment, it is important to remind yourself that eventually I will have to part from all of these. When I die, I will not be able to take along with me any of my clothes that I like. When I die, I will not be able to eat any of my favorite foods. When I die, I will not be able to be with my loved ones anymore. And so therefore, these are all temporary enjoyments, temporary pleasures. And it is not worth being attached to temporary pleasures, as they are temporary. If these pleasures were everlasting, then you could actually, you could say that it is worth being attached to them because you will not be parted from them. There will not be a time in which you will have to let go of them. But, however, that is not the case, and all of these are temporary. All of these pleasures are temporary. And so, therefore, it is not worth being attached to things, people and things that you are going to lose eventually. If you keep on being attached to them, when the time comes for you to die, you will mentally be unprepared, and you'll be unprepared to be parted from them. And due to that, you will be unhappy and a lot of suffering will follow. However, if you train your mind to accept the fact that you will be parted from them eventually, and if you train your mind to slowly get rid of the attachment to all of these, then eventually, when you die, you will be able to easily part from all of these. So that is the advantage of it. So therefore, please think of this, which is the main teaching, which is understanding or thinking of the meaning of impermanence. Now, thirdly is the aspect of the path. One should, again, take refuge, as mentioned before. One should take refuge and generate the mind of enlightenment. And after having done that, so as I mentioned, for the meditation on the verity of the human birth, you take refuge, generate the mind of enlightenment, as well as for impermanence and the law of cause and effect. Each of these tells you to take refuge and generate the mind of enlightenment again and again. So you can fix different sessions in your day. So for example, for today you can fix a certain time. It does not have to be long, but just a good amount of time, maybe not too much, yet not too little. And in that time you take refuge and generate the mind of enlightenment, and then you meditate upon the verity of the human birth. And then tomorrow you do the refuge and the mind of enlightenment, and then you meditate upon impermanence, and on the next day of that, then you can proceed with the law of cause and effect. And you can proceed like that. Or you can practice just the verity of the human birth for several days, and once you feel that your mind has changed a little bit and that you're opening your mind to new perspectives, I guess you could say, then you can proceed to the next step. So you can see whatever is comfortable for you. And so now thirdly, to speak of the law of cause and effect, you should think to yourself that the attainment of the human birth is extremely rare, and it is not just is it rare, but it is also of an impermanent nature. And so, before I die, I should make sure to be able to abandon all negative deeds and to accomplish as much good deeds as I can. So one should think to oneself in such a way. And the reason why I should abandon negative deeds is because the accumulation of negative deeds results in unpleasant rebirths, such as rebirths in the lower realms, such as the hell realm, the hungry ghost realm, and the animal realms. So if I accumulate negative deeds, I will end up being reborn in a future existence, in a future life, in one of these lower realms, and that I do not wish to, because there's immense suffering in those realms, much more suffering and unimaginable suffering compared to the suffering that I experience now as a human. So therefore, since I do not wish to suffer in such ways, I should avoid the causes of such suffering, which is the negative deeds in the first place. And one still continues to think of the results of the negative deeds, why it is considered bad to accumulate negative deeds, why is it wrong, why are there disadvantages. And one can understand that also by pondering upon the result of each of the negative deeds. For example, if I kill a being, whether it be a human being or an animal or any kind of being, if I take the life of a sentient being, the result is, in the future, whether it could be this life or in one's future lives, I will be endowed with a short life. I will not be endowed with a long life, because the result of killing a sentient being, the result of taking the life of a sentient being is short life. Is that one will have a short life. And the result of stealing is also unpleasant, because if one steals, in the future one will face poverty. One will not be able to get good food. One will not be able to have good clothes. One will not be able, and due to that, one will not be able to live a good life. So therefore, I should avoid the causes of such results. And the results of one of the faults of accumulating negative deeds, one of the disadvantages, is that once one has started in performing negative deeds, it is very difficult to stop oneself from accumulating more negative deeds. Once one starts, one finds that one will end up accumulating more and more negative deeds. And this is the way we can see this is from people who lie often. There are people who lie. When people lie, once they lie, they end up bringing up more lies. They end up telling more lies. The reason why is, once they lie, they get worried that people will find out that they lied. And so they bring up a new lie to cover up that lie. And then they get worried that people will find out that this is a lie as well. And so then they bring another lie, they tell another lie to cover up that lie as well. And so then they just accumulate, they tell more and more lies and accumulate more and more negative deeds. And it is the same for killing. When one has killed a sentient being, one maybe one may find it that it is easy or it is natural, or some people find maybe joy in it. They like to do it, and then they end up killing more and more people. And it is the same whether it's stealing or telling lies or killing or any of the kind of negative deeds there are. So therefore it's best to avoid accumulating the negative deed from the very start. And one also should think that if one has accumulated negative deeds, the result is rebirth in the lower realms. And once one has been born in the lower realms, it is very difficult to escape from there. It is like once you are born in the lower realms, it is like you are trapped in there. Even if you want to get out, it is very difficult. It takes a very long time for you to escape from unpleasant state. So one thinks of that. Also, some faults of accumulating negative deeds is that if you accumulate negative deeds, one of the results is that the atmosphere around you will not smell pleasant. You yourself will not smell pleasant, and people will not like to stay near you. They will fear you. They will avoid you. And this is one of the disadvantages of practicing the negative, of accumulating negative deeds. Because many of us want happiness, we wish to feel loved, but yet we accumulate negative deeds. And this is exactly what will lead us to not being loved. So therefore, if you wish to be loved, if you wish to be happy, it is extremely important that you stay away from accumulating negative deeds as much as you can. And it is pretty much impossible to abandon negative deeds immediately. You cannot abandon negative deeds all at one go. Like you cannot abandon negative deeds completely just today. It is very difficult. However, day by day, with more practice, one will be able to slowly and gradually be able to get rid of one's negative deeds, to abandon one's negative deeds. And the way to do so is you have to keep track of your thoughts. It's important that you keep track of your thoughts. The best is if you can notice the thought right at the moment when it arises in your mind, whether it be a good thought or a bad thought. If it's a bad thought, then you notice that it is a bad thought. You should notice that, I see, a bad thought has arisen in my mind. And this is not good, as it can lead to suffering for not only myself, but also it can end up bringing harm to those that I love and others as well. So I should abandon this. I should not let this thought control my mind. So it's good, it's most excellent if you can notice the thought at the moment it arises in your mind. And if a good thought arises in your mind, then you notice that a good thought has arisen in my mind. This is most excellent, and this is something that I should continue to keep so in my mind. And so if a good thought arises, you be happy, you notice it, and you try to keep it. If a bad thought arises in your mind, you notice it, and you try to let go of it. And that may be difficult to do so. For some it may be easy, and that is the best. But for some people it may be difficult to notice the thought the moment it arises, because we are so used to letting our mind just chase after thoughts. We just get too carried away. We just let our thoughts take us wherever they want to. And we do not really examine the thoughts. We are not used to examining the thoughts that much. So in that case, at least try to, before you go to bed maybe, you just take some minutes to think of all that you have done in the day. How have I spent my day? How much good deeds have I accumulated in today? How much good thoughts did I harbor in my mind? How much bad thoughts did I harbor in my mind? And if you think about this, this is extremely beneficial as well. it is said that there was once a great sage, and he, at one point, he wanted to keep track of his mind. And to do so, a method which he devised was by gathering white rocks and black rocks, white rocks and dark rocks. So each time a good thought arose in his mind, he would put one white rock here. And then each time a bad thought arose in his mind, he would put a black rock. And in the beginning, he found that at the end of the day, when he counted all of the rocks, he found that there were more dark rocks than there were white rocks. But with more and more practice, with more and more diligence, with more and more examining of the thoughts and noticing the thoughts that arose in his mind at the moment they arose, eventually, when he checked the rocks that he had put aside, there ended up to be only white rocks, no dark rocks anymore. So therefore, it's important that you keep track of your thoughts. You notice them the moment they arise. So that is very important. And so, as I mentioned earlier, it is important to keep track of the bad thoughts and also of the good thoughts. And there are reasons why you should, just as there are reasons why you should abandon bad thoughts, there are also reasons why you should keep good thoughts, why you should generate good thoughts. And the reasons are not just good thoughts, but good actions. The reasons are, it is pretty much the opposite of the bad thoughts. If you accumulate good deeds, it will result in your birth in the higher realms. It could be you will be reborn either as a human being, either as a demigod or as a god. And the results of, for example, abandoning killing is that you will have a long life. The results of abandoning stealing is that you will have an abundance of wealth. You will not face poverty and no difficulties in any of the food or clothing or anything, any of the possessions, or to live a good livelihood. And if you abandon telling lies to others, the result is that people will trust you. And so there are many good results, that come from accumulating good deeds, good actions, virtuous actions. And on top of that, if you accumulate good deeds, the whole atmosphere in which you are living in, or which you are staying in, will be very, it will be scented. It will smell good. People will feel good around you. There are many benefits of accumulating good deeds. So with this, one sees the importance, one understands the importance of accumulating good deeds and abandoning negative deeds. And one strives to put all of these teachings into practice, to adapt them into one's lives, to meditate upon them, to think of them as often as one can. So I will leave it here today due to the limit of time, and I will teach the remaining of this parting from the four attachments in the next coming weeks soon. So until then, I hope all of you stay safe and take precautions. Always follow the advice of those that are well-knowledged on how to face the situation, such as the scientists and the doctors, and please respect all of them, as they are helping you. They are saving lives, and they are putting themselves on the front line to help all of us, and they are risking their own lives for our sake. So please respect their decisions, respect what they do for us, and of course, for those who are under lockdown, who are in countries that are under lockdown, then there's nothing, of course you cannot go out, but for those who are not particularly in lockdown, please try to limit yourself to go out as much as possible. And please try to stay in and only go out unless it is necessary. And also I would like to say, please do not worry yourselves too much. It is important to generate a calm and peaceful mind in this certain time. The more you the more you trouble yourself with worry, the more suffering you will experience. It does not help in making the situation any better the more you suffer. Taking precautions and worrying can sometimes, you could say, is not always the same. You can be very calm, relaxed, and also take precautions. And I hope you can do in such a way. So until then, please, until several weeks' time in which we will continue this teaching, please stay safe. Thank you.